Why would any conservative lawmaker be in favor of this bill?
That's a great question, and you might have to ask them. Like
They
I said,
won't
most
talk.
concerned. I know
They
some of
won't
this.
talk. Austin Smith speaks exclusively to State 48 News about a new bill which would not only expand photo radar in Arizona, but direct funds into clean elections.
Democrats and Republicans, we're supposed to be the champions of individual liberty and of our rights. This violates everybody's right. There should be 60 green Ys up there. There was a tweet from a member in this house that tweeted out earlier in the day about Photo Radar. It got 70,000 something views already. People don't want Photo Radar.
So why is this going through as a bill? Why is this not going to the voters?
That's another great question.
So, SB 1146. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think in my mind, is another undermining of the Sixth Amendment. You need to know who your accuser is when you are accused of something if you're going to go to court. Photo radar, in my opinion, exclusively violates the Sixth Amendment right because it takes a picture of you or your car or your license plate, and then that is what is supposed to hold up against you in court. Well, nothing in the Constitution specifically says that that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be another human being that is accusing you. And so what I believe what this bill does is that it allows the photo radar camera to still take the picture presented in court, and rather than just you versus the camera, somebody is appointed to represent that camera in the courtroom against you. That person wasn't a witness to if you broke a traffic law or if you were speeding, or I know how sometimes you may be just a second ahead of the line where it takes the picture where you're in the intersection and it'll get you. And so there's a lot of, I think, constitutionality. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I know that that's a lot of the heartburn that can come from that. That's why me and other members of the Freedom Caucus in the past were so adamantly against photo radar.
When we take an oath to defend this body and the Constitution, Photo Radar exclusively violates our Sixth Amendment right to not know who is your accuser. It's a machine. That's not a human being that can stand before you in court.
But just on the grounds of the Constitution and the Sixth Amendment, I think it could have some issues.
Why would any conservative lawmaker be in favor of this bill?
That's a great question, and you might have to ask them.
They won't talk.
I know
They
some of
won't
this.
talk.
I know. A lot of this, I think, also, like I mentioned in the past, like I mentioned to you before, has to stems from money. The municipalities that do make money from the traffic light cameras, the clean elections folks that do get money from the traffic violations as well. I don't think that that is fair to use that money to fund people's campaigns or to fund the municipalities. In the state of Arizona, our cities and the towns, they make money hand over fist. They have large budgets. I was on the Ways and Means Committee in the legislature, and we had the food tax repeal come before us. And I believe that that's also at HCR this year to send to the ballot. And, some of the rural communities or the smaller ones depend on the food tax for some of their general funding. And one of the things that we heard from the municipalities, whether it was the lobbyists or the mayors, was, well, if you get rid of the food tax, then we're not going to be able to pay our law enforcement officials. Mm-hmm. Well, my question to them was, why is the first thing, if you're having budget cuts, public safety? That should be the last thing or nothing at all that you cut, because that is a core function of government, is public safety for the municipalities, like police and fire, EMS. That is the responsibility. And so the first thing that you shouldn't cut is public safety. So if you're going to get rid of the traffic cameras and the money that goes to it, then you should be cutting other places that are wasteful government spending, things that are not the proper role of government, things that, the cities and towns pay good hefty retainer fees to contract lobbyists to retain them in order to, testify for or against something in the legislature and committee. And, that should be one of the first things that the public should be cutting rather than public safety. It should be going after lobbyist contracts that retain them, going for things that are not the proper role of government. If you go to a city hall or a town or a county municipality building, they're almost brand new, like all the time. Like every few years, it seems like they have a brand new building and like 4 or 5 stories. Well, you have enough money for these brand new buildings, so that doesn't mean that you need to be cutting public safety. And that's just my take on that, and has been for the last few years.
You know, the people in Arizona have overwhelmingly been against photo radar. In 1991, you had the people in Peoria, it was 70% did not want photo radar. Then you have
Mhm.
Tucson. And so, why is this going through as a bill? Why is this not going to the voters?
That's another great question. I think, Arizona did pass the proposition a few years ago that in order to raise taxes, it has to make that 60% threshold. I believe Warren Peterson has a bill this year to also reflect that for counties that are going to raise fees or taxes, that it needs to be a 2/3 vote on the Board of Supervisors. The same should be applied to our municipalities for our cities and towns, that in order to raise taxes, it needs to be a 2/3 vote. And if you're going to use traffic cameras for that, then it needs to be a 2/3 vote as well. It shouldn't be just a simple majority. I think we need uniformity in that matter. So if we're going to send this, I mean, if there is something like this that is going to continue to tax people for alleged traffic violation, then it should be a 2/3 vote of the elected body at large.
So I understand that this bill, it's not even just giving a ticket to the driver, it's for the owner of the vehicle. So let's say my friend ran to the store, took my car, ran to the
Mm.
store, and she's speeding, whatever, gets, you know, pinged by one of these cameras. I'm responsible. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's how I read it. I could be wrong, but that's so far how I've read it. And I've asked a couple other people to look as well, that would be a true concern, that you would be on the hook for the traffic camera or for the fine if it's your vehicle. So if your kid gets a ticket, if you're, like you said, your friend took the car to the store and got one, they're going to be on the hook for it too. But you, at the end of the day, are also responsible. Even though you were at the car, your name is just on the registration. And that's like, I mean, come on, like you didn't do anything wrong. You just own the vehicle.
So this would really hit the industry like Turo, right? Where you rent your car out to the people coming in town for spring training. You're talking about an entire industry that could
Mhm.
really have a huge problem with this.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no evidence to show that this is going to, um, you know, cut down on traffic violations. There's no evidence presented that that's what this is going to do. Most of these bills, when you see like this, and it's not the only one that's ever come through Arizona, the municipalities love it and the towns love it because they're going to get more shared revenue from it. The clean elections folks may like it because they're going to get shared revenue from it. And at the end of the day, it's wrong. I mean, we tax our people way more than what they need to in the state of Arizona, and the municipalities do as well, and the counties do as well. So we really don't need this.
Well, I understand that the ticket would be roughly 350, and then you have all these fees and surcharges with some of that money going to clean elections. So
Mhm.
let's talk about that. 350 is a lot of money. And
No,
then
it is.
and then you add on top of that, I guess the big concern when this was brought to me as a potential story, the big issue was the clean elections piece to that. Can you talk a little bit, explain to the people how that works?
Yeah, so I don't remember entirely how it works, other than the portions of that fine money and the fees money do go to clean elections, and then candidates have to qualify for those clean elections, that clean election funding. I don't necessarily think that that's fair. So if you're a Democrat and you get a fine, and some of it that you pay goes into the full clean of elections, you may be funding a Republican's campaign. Or if you're a Republican, you may be funding a Democrat's campaign. Or let's say you're an independent and you don't like either party and you're essentially funding their campaign. That's wrong. There's no I don't know if coercion is the right word, but it's you're being forced to do something that you have a ideological, maybe a moral opposition against. Maybe you don't like participating in elections, and you're funding these elections. And so we live in a country where you can participate to vote or not vote. The same should apply whether you can donate or not, because just because you broke the law doesn't mean that you should be responsible for funding a political campaign or a referendum question that you necessarily disagree with.
I feel like there's a lot of incentive here to be giving out tickets. A
Yeah,
lot of people are benefiting from this.
right, right. And so I mean, The only thing that I can think of is just benefiting from it would obviously be clean elections, and the candidates are from those that are in clean elections, and then the municipalities that are responsible for the traffic cameras. As you mentioned, they are very unpopular. They always have been.
AI. So out here in the West Valley, we have all these flock cameras.
Yeah.
And most people think automated license plate readers, I have nothing to hide, not an issue. And in my investigations, I'm finding out that there are a lot of issues with this AI technology, especially if they get your license plate wrong, how the information is stored. Do you want to talk a little bit about the privacy issue and photo radar?
Yeah, it's huge. It's just more growing of Big Brother, in my opinion, and the security bureaucracy is what I like to call it. Benjamin Franklin said, very famously, those who trade safety for a little liberty deserve, or those who would trade their liberty for a little safety deserve neither. And that essentially applies to this as well, that, I have nothing to hide, I have nothing to be scared of. Like, well, it's not, the government or even a private business without your consent to take that information. We have laws in this country that protect people from giving over their data if they so choose. If you choose to, go into a social contract or a contract with a private company that takes your data, you have made that decision. You have not made the decision for your vehicle and the information of your vehicle to be shared with private companies that can sell that data to, hostile parties or things that you most necessarily don't agree with. So there's definitely some problems with that.
One of my big concerns is, let's say we go through another pandemic. And Austin, you went to church on Sunday, and there was one person in there who had this new rare disease, virus, whatever. Well, we saw your license plate go through XYZ intersection, and now you need to be quarantined. Have you ever thought about anything like that? I don't know why these things go through my mind, but do the people understand the power of AI?
I really think they don't. I mean, it's a new emerging technology for us, and President Trump has been talking about it, and other members of Congress of like the AI race. And obviously, we just saw with China, I think it was called Deep something. I don't remember the exact name of it from their new AI information gatherer. So it's scary, and that power just being unharnessed and unleashed. Nobody knows the repercussions for things like this. So we should obviously take a proactive engagement in the AI discussion in the community, because obviously COVID's a perfect example that, when there are bureaucrats and leaders who don't fear the people, they will do anything to take that information, to take that data, to take that privacy, with no concern whatsoever for the people or for the Constitution. And so there is definitely a lot of problems with it, but a good policy approach is still to be very engaged in this conversation and aware of what the repercussions are, what the positives are, the net of these issues. And you have to have people elected that understand that first, people's rights come first before we get anywhere near doing something proactive, in my opinion, with AI.
If the people don't really understand it, do the lawmakers understand it? Because I'm finding they're passing, the purchase of all these cameras and all this equipment and everything, but they don't really understand the implications and the repercussions for the people and our privacy. Are you feeling that way or finding that?
Yeah, and having served in the legislature, we don't always have the brightest minds down there. They may have been elected, like, I'm not the smartest guy ever, but I was elected by my people, and you are entrusted to vote on behalf of your people the way that you feel that is best for your district and for your state and for your community. But that doesn't mean that you are the most know-all about a piece of legislation. A lot of times, lawmakers, even if they don't understand something, they'll just vote yes. I typically always just voted no if I didn't understand the bill correctly, or if I didn't have enough time to read it. I always voted no. That was the safety to fall back on. My philosophy on legislation voting was the same as Andy Biggs, Paul Gosar, and Eli Crane was. First question you have to ask is this constitutional? And if it's not constitutional, you vote no. So, and then if it is constitutional, the next question you need to have is this the proper role of government? If it's not the proper role of government, you vote no. If it is the proper role of government, then you can vote yes. Then the third and final question for it is like, is this good policy? Is it really needed right now? And if it's not, then you vote no. And if it is, you can vote yes. So you should really look at all policy perspectives from those three questions. Is it constitutional? Is this the proper role of government? And is it good policy that's needed right now? If it can't answer all three of those questions, then you should vote no. And that works, perfectly for the AI question. Is it constitutional? Most likely, yes. Is technology, emerging technologies that are protected under the First Amendment? Is it the proper role of government? We don't know yet if the government should be involved in this AI thing. Now, I personally think we should right now so we can understand what's going on. And then number three is this really needed right now if it's good policy? We don't know that it's good policy yet, where there hasn't been enough information yet on this AI question to understand that if it's good policy. So we should be voting no a lot of the times on this stuff. This is a problem looking for a solution. And I don't think necessarily that expanding the scope and power of the photo radar system is going to solve problems. I see it as just a way for the municipalities to make more money and for individuals to lose their Sixth Amendment right. And lawmakers and the public, most importantly, should be fully aware of this and, urge their lawmakers to vote no on things like this that eradicate anything that has to do with their Sixth Amendment rights.
If we're going to talk about underprivileged communities and people that can't afford tickets, $60, $70, $80, $100 goes a long way when you're trying to pay bills and trying to make ends meet. This affects everybody. There should be 60 green yeses here to restore the Sixth Amendment in the state of Arizona. I proudly vote aye.
Smith votes aye.
Well, thank you for everything that you do. I appreciate your time.
Not a problem, Jen. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.